I used to think my marriage with Jessica was solid. We'd been together for 7 years, and while we had our ups and downs, I always felt like we had something real. But standing here now, recounting this story, I can't help but feel that I was living in a fantasy. It's like I was wearing blinders, and it wasn't until everything started to fall apart that I realized she had stopped looking at me like I was hers, if she ever did. Jessica was bright, outgoing, and everyone loved her. She had this magnetic charm that drew people in. I, on the other hand, was more reserved and introverted. I had my career as a graphic designer, which kept me busy, but I also cherished the time we spent together at home. We had our routines: Friday movie nights, weekend brunches, long talks about our dreams. I thought that was enough. But there were signs, little hints that I chose to overlook. Her late nights at work that became more frequent, the way she started dressing up more often, as if she were trying to impress someone, or even the way she'd get irritated at the smallest things I did. I tried to brush them off as stress from her job. Jessica was a marketing manager and the pressure was intense, but looking back, I see now that it was so much more than that. The turning point came on a Tuesday evening when I got home early from work, excited to surprise her with takeout from her favorite Thai place. As I entered our apartment, I noticed it was unusually quiet. Jessica should have been there, but her car wasn't in the driveway. I shrugged it off and started to set up the food on the table when my phone buzzed. It was a text from one of my buddies, Jake, asking if I'd seen Jessica at the new bar downtown. I froze, the way his casual inquiry hit me like a brick wall. I had always known about her social life, but the bar, it was new. Why hadn't she mentioned it? I texted back. What do you mean? He replied that he'd seen her there with some guy, laughing and looking close. I felt a knot twist in my stomach. I grabbed my keys and drove to the bar, which was only a few minutes away. The moment I walked through the door, I scanned the room, and there they were. Jessica, leaning in way too close to this guy, laughing like I hadn't seen in ages. The way she looked at him, it was like I wasn't even in the picture anymore. I stood in the shadows, my heart racing, a cold sweat forming on my back. That's when it hit me like a tidal wave crashing over me. I felt sick. My mind raced with questions, doubts, and a searing pain. This wasn't just a friendly outing. The way they were touching, how she was playfully pushing him, and the way her eyes sparkled. It was a side of her I hadn't seen in years, if ever. My mind was spinning, grappling with the reality of what I was witnessing. I couldn't just stand there. I stormed out of the bar and headed home. I didn't even finish my dinner. It sat untouched, a bitter reminder of what was supposed to be a nice evening. I waited for her to come home, my heart racing, anger simmering beneath the surface. When she walked in, I confronted her immediately, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and hurt. Where have you been, Jess? I asked, trying to keep my tone even. She looked startled, then defensive, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind as she tried to concoct a believable story. I was out with some coworkers, she replied, her voice steady but her eyes darting away. You know how stressful work has been. I pressed further, and that's when the excuses crumbled. She couldn't even look me in the eye. The confrontation quickly devolved into a storm of accusations and half-hearted denials. Her eyes shifted. She tried to play it cool, but there was a flicker of guilt in them that I clung to, a sign that maybe, just maybe, I was onto something. As the truth began to unravel, I felt a sense of betrayal I had never known before. I was angry and I was heartbroken. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to make her feel the crushing weight of what she had done. But all I could manage was to stand there, feeling like a shadow of the man I used to be, lost, betrayed, and utterly alone. Now I had to process what this meant. For us, for our future. I could feel the tension building inside me, a cocktail of emotions ready to explode. Did I even want to save this? Could this marriage be salvaged? As I sat there contemplating everything, the reality of the situation began to sink in. I had to decide what to do next. Was it time for revenge? Was it time to walk away? Or was it time to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be? I didn't know, but I felt the need to figure it out before it consumed me entirely. The days that followed that night seemed to stretch on like a twisted nightmare. I hardly slept, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal, Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jessica with that guy, their laughter echoing in my ears like a mocking reminder of everything we had built, everything that was now hanging by a thread. I didn't know if I was more angry or broken-hearted. Perhaps it was a mix of both. Jessica tried to act like everything was normal. She would come home from work, smile at me, and even ask about my day. It was like she was living in a parallel universe where nothing had happened. I felt like I was in some twisted game of charades, and I was the only one who knew the rules. I didn't know how to act. Part of me wanted to confront her again, to press her for the truth, but I feared where that might lead. Each time I looked at her, all I could see was the deception, the lies I had once trusted. I decided to gather more evidence. I wasn't going to let her spin this into something I would regret later. I started paying close attention to her every move, noting the times she would be working late and the occasional phone calls that she would rush to take outside. One evening, while she was in the shower, I grabbed her phone from the kitchen counter. My heart raced as I punched in her passcode. You know, the one she used to say was just for security. I felt a mix of guilt and determination as I scrolled through her messages, praying for proof, for clarity. What I found was worse than I could have imagined. Texts filled with flirty emojis, inside jokes, and plans that didn't involve me. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. My heart sank. It was all right there, laid out in front of me like a bitter truth I could no longer ignore. I gripped the phone tightly, a wave of nausea hitting me as I realized how deep this went. I confronted her that very night. I laid everything bare, the texts, the lies, the late nights, and the way she looked at that guy. I was shaking, not from fear but from the weight of my anger and disbelief. Is this what you want, Jessica? Is this what you've been doing behind my back? My voice cracked, the pain spilling out with every word. She tried to deny it at first, but when I showed her the text, her face dropped. Denial turned to anger. You went through my phone? Are you kidding me? This is such an invasion of privacy. She yelled, her voice sharp and defensive. It was as if she couldn't see the irony in her situation. I stood my ground, refusing to let her deflect. Stop it, Jessica. You think this is just about your privacy? You're cheating on me, you've betrayed our marriage. The confrontation spiraled into chaos. She threw out accusations about how I was suffocating her and how I never gave her space. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I fought back, listing all the ways I had supported her, all the times I had been there for her. But every time I laid out my feelings, she twisted them, making me feel like the villain. It was a gaslighting marathon, and I was exhausted. In the end, she stormed out, leaving me standing in the middle of our living room, heart racing and mind spinning. I could hear her heels clicking away, the sound echoing in the empty space where warmth and comfort had once lived. After that night, everything shifted. I sought solace in my friends. I needed to unload the burden I was carrying. I turned to Jake first, the one who had inadvertently set this all in motion. Over beers, I told him everything. The laughter, the betrayal, the devastation. He listened intently, offering words of support and anger toward Jessica's actions. You deserve better, man, he said, shaking his head. She clearly doesn't appreciate you. Those words resonated with me, but my heart was still caught in a tug-of-war between love and betrayal. I also confided in Sarah, a close friend from work. Her reaction was even stronger. You need to take control of this situation. Don't just sit back and let her walk all over you, she urged. Her passion ignited something inside me. I realized I couldn't just let this go. I had to decide if I was going to fight for my marriage or fight for myself. That week became a blur of emotions. I oscillated between confronting Jessica again and pulling away from her altogether. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, peering into the abyss of our crumbling relationship. I had questions but lacked the answers. Did I still love her? Did I even recognize the woman before me anymore? I finally settled on a plan. I needed time to think, to gather my thoughts, and to reevaluate everything. I couldn't trust her anymore, that much was clear. I would bide my time, watch her actions, and see if there was any remorse or accountability. If she was truly sorry, perhaps there was a chance we could salvage this. If not, I'd have to prepare myself for the hardest decision of my life, whether to walk away or confront the cold, hard truth of what she had done. The emotional roller coaster left me feeling drained, but I knew I had to navigate through this storm. I had to find my footing again, no matter how uncertain the path ahead might be. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself trapped in a cycle of pain, confusion, and anger. Jessica continued to come home every night, but each time felt like a ticking time bomb ready to explode. It was as if we were living together in a twisted form of normalcy, where the elephant in the room grew larger by the moment. I watched her closely, searching for signs of guilt, remorse, or any hint that she understood the magnitude of her betrayal. But as time went on, it became clear that she was either too skilled at hiding her true feelings or simply didn't care. Each night I would lie awake, replaying our last confrontation in my head. I thought about the life we had built together, the vacations, the dreams we shared, the plans for the future. It felt surreal that all of that could so easily shatter over her infidelity. I wanted to believe she still loved me, that she was just caught up in a moment of weakness, but deep down, I knew that I was holding on to a fantasy. One Friday night, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I called Jake and asked him to join me for drinks, needing a distraction from the suffocating weight of my reality. We went to a local bar, the same one where I had first spotted Jessica with that guy. I needed to face my demons, confront the memories head-on. I figured if I could drown out the pain with some laughter and camaraderie, it would help clear my mind. The night started out great. We exchanged stories, and I felt a sense of relief in having someone who understood what I was going through. But as the drinks flowed, so did the reality of my situation. Jake could see the turmoil brewing within me. "You still haven't told me what you're planning to do," he said, concern etched across his face. "I don't know, man." Part of me wants to just confront her, to throw it all back in her face and walk away. But another part of me is still holding on to hope. I can't just give up on everything, I admitted, feeling the weight of my uncertainty. Jake paused for a moment, taking a sip of his beer. "Hope is great, but at what cost? You've got to ask yourself if she's worth it. If she's going to keep betraying your trust, maybe it's time to think about what you want out of your life, not just this marriage." His words hit home. I had been so focused on Jessica and the state of our relationship that I had neglected to consider what I truly wanted. I wanted my dignity back, my self-respect. I spent a good part of the night weighing my options, listening to Jake's advice and sharing my thoughts. We ended up staying out late, and by the time I stumbled back home, I felt a little more grounded, my resolve starting to take shape. That weekend, I decided I had to confront Jessica again. I needed clarity, and I needed to know if she was willing to fight for what we had destroyed. I set a time to talk when I knew she would be home and tried to prepare myself mentally for what lay ahead. Part of me dreaded this conversation, but another part was desperate to know where we stood. When she walked through the door that evening, she seemed oblivious to the storm brewing. I could feel the tension in the air, a crackling energy that heightened every moment. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves, and led her to the living room. "Jess, we need to talk," I said, keeping my voice steady. She looked at me, a hint of annoyance flickering across her face, but I pressed on. "I can't keep pretending everything is fine. I know what you've been doing, and I need you to be honest with me. Are you willing to fight for this marriage, or are you done?" Her expression shifted, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind. "You don't understand how hard things have been for me," she started, a defensive tone creeping into her voice. "I've been stressed, and I needed to blow off some steam." "It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything. You were with someone else. This goes beyond blowing off steam, Jess," I shot back, my voice rising. "It's not just about a few drinks or a laugh. It's about trust, commitment, and the vows we made to each other. If you think this is acceptable, then maybe you don't really want this marriage." The confrontation escalated quickly. Jessica started throwing out excuses again, painting herself as the victim of my accusations. She claimed I had been distant, that I had pushed her away, as if her betrayal was somehow justified by my perceived failures. I could feel the anger bubbling inside me, but I refused to let it boil over. I wanted answers, not just a blame game. "Jessica, I'm not going to sit here and let you deflect," I said, my voice firm. "If you want to fix this, we need to start with honesty. Is that too much to ask?" Her silence spoke volumes. In that moment, I realized that she wasn't ready to take responsibility for her actions. I felt my heart sink further. If she wasn't willing to acknowledge the pain she had caused, then there was little hope left for us. I decided to push harder. Are you having an affair with that guy from the bar? Is that who you've been seeing? Yes or no, Jess? The room grew thick with tension, and finally she broke. Fine, yes, I've been seeing him, but it's not what you think. It's complicated, she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. Complicated? You're choosing to complicate our lives with lies and infidelity. I shot back, feeling the betrayal crash over me like a wave. In that moment, the facade she had maintained crumbled. I could see the pain and regret in her eyes, but there was also a flicker of defiance. It was clear that she didn't fully grasp the gravity of her actions. She painted herself as misunderstood, but I couldn't care less about her excuses anymore. It was time to lay all my cards on the table. If you're not going to fight for our marriage, then what's the point? You can't just keep stringing me along while you pursue someone else. I can't do this anymore, Jess. I need to know if you're committed to fixing this or if you're just going to keep playing both sides. Her expression shifted again, and for the first time I saw a flicker of realization in her eyes. This was the moment of truth. I felt a mixture of fear and hope. Would she choose to fight for us, or would she continue down this path of destruction? As the silence stretched between us, my heart raced. I braced myself for her answer, knowing that whichever direction this took would have lasting consequences. Whether it meant rebuilding our shattered relationship or letting go of a love that had become tainted, I had to prepare for whatever came next. The silence hung heavy in the air like a thick fog, each passing second feeling more suffocating than the last. Jessica looked at me, her eyes wide, as if she was trying to process the enormity of what was happening. I could see the internal struggle playing out on her face. She was caught between a desire to maintain the facade of our life together and the reality of her infidelity. Please, just let me explain, she finally murmured, her voice trembling. I didn't mean for it to happen. It started as a friendship, but things just spiraled out of control. I never wanted to hurt you. I felt my heart pounding in my chest, rage bubbling beneath the surface. You think that makes it okay? You're right, it didn't start as a betrayal, but that's exactly what it has become. You've shattered my trust, Jess. How can I believe anything you say now? I know it's hard to understand, she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I just felt so alone for so long. You were always busy with work, and I thought. Thought what? I interrupted, furious. That cheating on your husband was the answer. You should have come to me. We could have worked through it, but instead you chose deceit. Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment I thought I could see a glimpse of the woman I once loved, the one who would have fought for us instead of running away. I messed up, okay, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But I still love you. I didn't want it to come to this. Love isn't enough when you betray someone like this, Jess. Love is honesty, loyalty, and commitment. You violated all of that. I shot back, my heart aching with the truth of my words. And now you want to sweep it under the rug. As the anger poured out of me, I could feel something shifting within her. She wasn't just the woman who had cheated. She was also someone who had been struggling with her own demons. But it still didn't excuse her actions. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, grappling with the remnants of love that once filled our marriage. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away, she said, her voice shaking. But can we work on this together? I'm willing to go to couples therapy. I want to fix this. I paused, the weight of her words hitting me hard. Therapy, it was a step, but was it enough? I wasn't sure. The thought of diving into that process felt overwhelming. Could I trust her to be honest during those sessions? What if she continued to lie? I don't know, Jess. You've broken my trust in a way that's hard to come back from. I need to think, I said, feeling the tears prick at the corners of my eyes. I never wanted to be in this position. I never wanted to have to think about whether our marriage was worth saving. As the conversation lingered, I could see her desperation. She was genuinely remorseful, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still trying to protect herself. I felt torn between wanting to believe her and knowing that I had to guard my heart. For the next few days, everything felt surreal. Jessica was trying so hard to be supportive, to check in with me, to show that she wanted to change. But every time she touched me or attempted to initiate a conversation, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. It was a delicate dance of longing and resentment, and it left me feeling raw. I reached out to Sarah again for advice. As a friend, she had always been wise beyond her years. I needed someone to help me make sense of the chaos in my heart. Over coffee, I laid it all out for her, the confrontation, the tears, the hope that clashed with my anger. "You know, regaining trust takes time," she said gently. "But you have to be honest with yourself about how you feel. Can you see a future with her after this, or is it too stained?" I sighed, swirling my coffee around in the cup. "I don't know. Part of me wants to give her a chance, but another part of me feels like I'd just be setting myself up for more heartache. I can't keep living like this, waiting for the other shoe to drop." "Then you have to take control of the situation. Set the boundaries. If you decide to give her another chance, make it clear what you need from her," she advised. "But if you think it's past the point of repair, then you owe it to yourself to walk away." Her words resonated with me. I realized that I had been so focused on Jessica's feelings that I hadn't given myself permission to acknowledge my own. I needed to decide what I wanted. That night, I returned home determined to lay it all out. I took a deep breath before calling Jessica into the living room. When she entered, her eyes were filled with a mix of hope and trepidation. "Jess, I've thought a lot about what we talked about," I began, my voice steady. "And I need to be honest with you. I can't just pretend everything is fine when it's not. I've been thinking about our marriage, about what it means to me, and I have to set some boundaries if we're going to move forward." "Okay," she said, her voice trembling. "What do you need?" "I need transparency. I need you to be open about where you are, who you're with, and what you're doing. No more secrets. If you want this to work, you have to be fully committed, no sliding back into old habits," I said, feeling the weight of those words. "And I need time. I don't want to rush into fixing this just because we're both scared of losing each other. We need to take it slow." Jessica nodded, her expression shifting from anxiety to something resembling relief. "I can do that. I want to prove to you that I can be better. I will do whatever it takes." "Good. But understand that trust is earned, not given," I replied, my heart heavy but hopeful. "I'm willing to try, but it's going to take time and effort from both of us." As I spoke, I could see the sincerity in her eyes, a flicker of the love we once shared. It wasn't a magic fix, but it was a step forward. I had decided to give our marriage a fighting chance, but I also knew I had to protect myself. I couldn't afford to be blindsided again. With that, we began to navigate the uncharted waters of rebuilding our relationship. It was going to be a tough road, but perhaps there was still hope for us yet. I wanted to believe we could find our way back to one another, despite the pain. But in the back of my mind, I knew that if things spiraled out of control again, I would have to be ready to walk away. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions. Jessica and I had entered into an unspoken agreement to work on our marriage, but each day felt like a tightrope walk. I had established my boundaries, and while she was compliant, there was an underlying tension that we couldn't quite shake. Each gesture of affection felt laced with uncertainty, and every conversation was a delicate negotiation between hope and fear. We started attending couples therapy, which was as daunting as it was enlightening. Sitting across from the therapist, I felt exposed, laying bare the fractures in our relationship. Jessica was openly emotional, often breaking down in tears as she recounted her feelings of loneliness and dissatisfaction before the affair. I listened, trying to empathize, but I couldn't help but feel a mix of pity and anger. "While I understand that you felt neglected, Jess, it doesn't excuse what you did," I said during one session, my voice steady but strained. "You could have talked to me instead of seeking comfort in someone else." I know," she replied, tears streaming down her face. "I just felt so lost, and I thought I could handle it on my own. I didn't want to burden you with my struggles." The therapist nodded, guiding us toward understanding and communication. "It's crucial to acknowledge both of your feelings in this process. Jessica, your feelings are valid, but so are your husband's feelings of betrayal and hurt. It's about finding a way to navigate these emotions together." I began to see the merit in therapy. Each week, we peeled back layers of our relationship, slowly unearthing our desires, fears, and expectations. The more we talked, the clearer it became that rebuilding our trust was going to take more than just words. It would require consistent actions, patience, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. But even as we worked through things, there was an underlying current of doubt. I still found myself scrutinizing Jessica's every move, dissecting her behavior for any signs of deceit. I would get anxious when she was out with friends or when she received a text. My heart would race, a reflex born from betrayal. One day, while she was in the shower, I couldn't help myself. I grabbed her phone once more, not proud of my actions but desperate for reassurance. I scrolled through her messages, heart racing, only to find the same flirty text from that guy, still saved in her inbox. My stomach dropped, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I confronted her once again that evening. "You said you wanted to be committed to our marriage, Jess. How can I trust you when you still have messages from him? Why haven't you deleted them?" She looked genuinely surprised, her eyes widening in disbelief. "I thought I had. I didn't even realize they were still there. I swear I'm trying to move on." "Trying isn't enough," I shot back, my voice shaking with frustration. "If you're serious about us, you need to cut ties completely. This isn't just a friendship, it's a reminder of your betrayal. I can't keep going through this cycle of doubt and fear. It's exhausting." As I said those words, I felt a mix of anger and sorrow. We were back to square one, and I was sinking deeper into despair. I had hoped that therapy would help us build a foundation, but I couldn't seem to shake the feeling that I was always one step away from losing everything again. The following week, after yet another emotionally charged therapy session, Jessica suggested we take a weekend trip to reconnect. Maybe some time away will help us clear our heads and remember why we fell in love in the first place. She proposed, her voice tentative but hopeful. I hesitated, torn between the desire to rekindle something we had lost and the fear that the weekend would only amplify my volatile emotions. But in the end, I agreed, hopeful that maybe a change of scenery would help us find our footing again. We drove out to a cabin in the woods, surrounded by nature and tranquility. The moment we arrived, I felt the tension in my chest start to ease. We spent our first evening cooking together and reminiscing about the early days of our relationship, laughing at shared jokes and recalling fond memories. For a while, it felt like we were stepping back into a time when our love was fresh and untainted. But as the night wore on, old wounds crept back in. Lying in bed, I turned to Jessica, my heart heavy with conflicting emotions. "I want this to work, but I need to know you're fully committed to us. No more secrets, no more half-truths," I said, my voice low and earnest. "I promise," she replied, her eyes glistening in the soft light. "I'm all in, I swear. I don't want to lose you." As I looked into her eyes, I wanted to believe her, but doubt still lingered in the back of my mind. I thought back to the countless times I had trusted her before, only to have that trust shattered. Could I really let myself believe in her words again? The next day we went hiking, soaking in the beauty of the surrounding trees and mountains. But I found myself distracted, my mind racing with worries. What if she was hiding more? What if this was all an act? During a break, we sat by a stream and I looked at her, my heart aching for both of us. "What are we doing, Jess? Can we really mend this? Can I ever truly trust you again?" I asked, my voice trembling. She took my hands in hers and looked deep into my eyes. "It's going to take time. I know I've hurt you, but I want to show you that I can change. I love you and I don't want to lose you. I'll do whatever it takes." In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Maybe we could find our way back to each other, but it wouldn't be easy. It would take hard work, vulnerability, and a commitment to honesty on both sides. We finished our hike and, as we returned to the cabin, I realized that we were at a crossroads. The path ahead was uncertain, but perhaps we could navigate it together. I had to trust her, not just in words but in actions. If she was willing to fight for us, I had to allow myself the opportunity to believe in the possibility of a happier future, one step at a time. But still, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered caution. I knew that if we were going to rebuild our marriage, I had to be prepared for whatever came next. The road ahead might be rocky, but I was ready to face it together or apart. The rest of our weekend at the cabin was a mix of tension and tentative hope. I could feel us inching closer to something, but the uncertainty loomed large. Every laugh, every shared glance was colored by the weight of our past. I wanted to embrace the possibility of healing, but the scars of betrayal were still fresh in my heart. As we headed back home, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief that we had taken a step toward reconnecting, but dread at the reality that awaited us back in our everyday lives. The real test was how we would navigate our relationship amidst the pressures of our routine. Would we revert back to our old patterns, or could we truly build something new from the ashes of our broken trust? The first week back was a challenge. I noticed Jessica was making a conscious effort to be more present, to check in with me often, and to engage in open conversations. We began to establish a new rhythm in our lives, but there were moments when the past crept back in. I'd catch myself scrutinizing her behavior, questioning late nights or unexplained absences. Each time she would reassure me, and I'd feel guilty for doubting her. During one of our therapy sessions, our therapist encouraged us to set trust checkpoints. These were moments where we could openly discuss our feelings and concerns about our relationship, a space free from judgment. It was a strange but effective approach. It forced us to talk about our emotions, our fears, and our progress. Trust is like a glass, our therapist had said. Once it's broken, it can be put back together. But the cracks will always be visible. It's important to acknowledge those cracks instead of pretending they don't exist. I took those words to heart. I started to view our relationship through the lens of rebuilding, not only trust but also respect and communication. I tried to let go of the incessant need to monitor Jessica's every move, focusing instead on creating an environment where we could openly share our feelings without fear. One evening, while we were sitting together on the couch watching a movie, I turned to her and said, "You know, I'm still terrified. I'm scared that if I let my guard down, I'll get hurt again." "I get that," she replied, her voice soft. "I'm scared too, but I'm willing to work through it with you. I don't want us to be defined by this mistake. I want to move forward together." That conversation marked a turning point for me. I began to realize that healing wouldn't be a linear process. It would be filled with ups and downs, setbacks and advancements. I started to forgive not just Jessica, but also myself for the pain I had allowed to seep into our lives. As the months passed, we began to find our footing. Jessica started to engage with me more, not just in our relationship, but in her own life as well. She sought therapy for herself, tackling the issues that had led her to seek validation outside of our marriage. I admired her courage, and it reignited a spark in me. I wanted to be the partner she deserved, as much as I wanted to reclaim my own self-worth. We began to rediscover each other. Weekend hikes turned into spontaneous road trips. We would cook together, dance in the kitchen, and dream aloud about the future. I could see Jessica coming back to life, and with each moment we shared, I felt the cracks in our relationship begin to heal. There were still difficult conversations, moments of doubt and bumps along the way. I would have moments where I'd spiral into anxiety, and she'd remind me of the progress we'd made. "We're in this together, remember," she would say, grounding me. Eventually, we reached a place where we could talk about the affair without the festering pain. We could discuss what led to it and how it had affected us, not just as individuals but as a couple. In those conversations, I learned that vulnerability was key. By sharing our fears and insecurities openly, we could create a stronger bond. As the year came to an end, we would sit together on the couch, reflecting on our journey. "I can't believe how far we've come," I said one evening, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. "Me neither," Jessica replied, a smile brightening her face. "Sometimes I think I didn't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm so grateful for it. You have no idea how much I want to be better for you." I took her hands in mine, squeezing them gently. "We've both learned hard lessons. The road won't always be easy, but I believe in us. I believe we can create something beautiful from the ashes." As we sat there together, I realized that while the scars of betrayal would always be part of our story, they also served as a reminder of our resilience. We had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, more connected, and more honest with each other. In that moment, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. I had learned that love is not just about the good times. It's also about facing the storms. I wanted to share this newfound understanding with others who might be facing similar struggles, encouraging them to fight for their love, to seek help, and to remember that healing is a journey worth taking. As I reflected on everything we had endured, I knew that whatever the future held, I was ready to face it, hand in hand with the woman who had once broken my heart, but had also helped me understand the depths of forgiveness, love, and the power of second chances.